A Song of Ice and Fire, A Clash of Kings by George R. Martin, a sleepy summary. There is a comet in the sky when this book begins. A long red comet, sliding across the heavens like a crack in the world, visible from everywhere, interpreted differently by everyone. In the north they call it the Red Sword, the sword that was promised, a sign from the old gods. In the Riverlands they call it the Sword of the Lannisters, red as the lion's colours, blood on the sky. In the east, across the narrow sea, Daenerys and her tiny ragged band of followers call it the Herald of Dragons, a burning confirmation that they are going the right way. The small folk everywhere call it the King's Comet, but they cannot agree which king. Every king in the realm has a follower who says the comet belongs to him. There are a great many kings in the realm now. This is the problem. 5 kings. When a clash of kings begins, 5 men claim the right to rule, and the realm is tearing itself apart along the seams of their ambitions. There is Joffrey, the boy on the Iron Throne, golden and cruel, backed by Lannister gold and Lannister swords. There is Robb Stark, the king in the north, who does not even want the Iron Throne, only justice and independence. There is Renly Baratheon, Robert's youngest brother, who wants the throne because he thinks he would be good at it, which is a more honest reason than most. There is Stannis Baratheon, Robert's middle brother, who wants the throne because it is his by right of succession, which is the correct legal answer and the coldest emotional one. And far to the east, barely relevant yet, but becoming more so by the chapter, there is Daenerys Targaryen, who has dragons. 5 kings, 1 realm, and a red comet drawing a line across the night, as if pointing toward the inevitable bloodshed of it all. Sleep through the politics if you can. Keep your ears open for what's coming from the north. Let us begin at the wall, because the wall is where the story is largest and coldest and most ancient, and starting there has a way of putting everything else in proper perspective. Castle Black is the Night's Watch's main fortress, grey and austere and draughty, set into the wall itself, the ice rising behind it impossibly high. Jon Snow is here, 16 now, sworn to the Watch, the Lord Commander's personal steward, which means he carries the old bear's messages and fetches his meals, and has better access to the commander's thinking than almost anyone else in the castle. He has Ghost, his white direwolf, and Longclaw, the Valyrian steel sword given to him after he saved the Lord Commander's life, and he has Sam Tarly, his fat and frightened and quietly brilliant friend, and he has the restlessness of a boy who feels he ought to be doing something more. Lord Commander Jeor Mormont, the old bear, weathered and grey and absolutely serious about the threat beyond the wall in a way that nobody south of it is taking seriously enough, has decided to ride north with a great ranging, not a small scouting party. A real expedition, 300 men of the Watch, riding deep into the lands beyond the wall to find out what has become of Benjen Stark, Ned Stark's brother and the Watch's first ranger, who went ranging and never came back. Also to find out where Mance Rayder is. Mance Rayder is a former crow, a former man of the Night's Watch, who deserted his vows, went beyond the wall, and somehow convinced the wildling people, who have historically been incapable of agreeing on anything, to follow him as one. He calls himself the king beyond the wall. He has an army. He is gathering it. Nobody south of the wall has thought hard enough about why 100,000 wildlings might suddenly want to come south all at once. But the answer, if you listen to the oldest stories, is very cold and very dead and very patient. The ranging rides out. Jon rides with it. They go first to the holdfast of a wildling man named Craster, which is a grim and isolated place deep in the snowy wilderness north of the wall, a low wooden longhouse surrounded by a muddy yard, smelling of smoke and animals and worse things. Craster is a broad, rough, unpleasant man with many wives, all of whom are also his daughters, in a cycle that doesn't bear examining too closely. He deals with the Watch when it suits him, and with the others when it suits him better, and it gradually becomes apparent that the sons he fathers on his daughter wives are left out in the cold as offerings, and that the others take them. He is tolerated by the Watch because he provides shelter and information, and the Watch is too stretched thin to afford the luxury of morality right now. Jon observes all of this and hates it, and is told, essentially, to hold his tongue. South of the wall, in the great northern castle of Winterfell, Bran Stark is learning to live in a body that will not work properly. He is 8 now, and he has been awake since the fall, since Jaime Lannister pushed him from that tower window, but his legs are gone, feeling and function both, and he will never walk again. He is carried everywhere in a basket on the back of a large, gentle, simple-minded boy named Hoda, who is the stable boy's son, who is perhaps 6.5 feet tall, and whose entire vocabulary consists of the single word Hoda, which he says in various tones that communicate more than you might expect. Hoda carries Bran with great patience and great care. Bran's wolf Summer is always near him now, and Bran has discovered something strange and private about himself. He can slip into Summer's mind when he sleeps. He dreams through the direwolf's senses, the sharper smells, the different colors, the way the world opens up when experienced through 4 feet and a wolf's attention. These are called warg dreams, and Bran doesn't have a name for what he is yet, but there is a name. He is a warg, a skin changer, one of those rare people who can inhabit the minds of animals. He has these wolf dreams, and he has other dreams too, stranger ones, where he seems to see through the eyes of the weirwood trees, where he feels the roots of the heart tree wrapping around something ancient. There is something at the bottom of those dreams that seems to be looking back at him. Winterfell has a new presence now, Osha, a wildling woman who came south with a raiding party in the first book and was taken prisoner and has been put to work in the castle kitchens. She is rangy and practical and has a directness that comes from having survived things that would have killed most people, and she tells Bran things about the world beyond the wall in the matter-of-fact tone of someone who grew up with that world as a neighboring reality rather than a legend. She is not cruel. She is not kind. She is useful, and in this story that is its own form of virtue. Also at Winterfell, Maester Luwin, the castle's grey-robed maester, a learned man, small and round-shouldered, who carries the weight of advising the household with the tired patience of someone who has been doing it for decades. And Sir Roderick Castle, the white-haired master-at-arms, steady and loyal, and not built for the politics unfolding around him. Anne Brand's little brother Rickon, now 4, who senses the wrongness of everything even without being able to name it, whose wolf shaggy dog is increasingly wild and difficult, and the absence of Rob, who is in the south making war, and the absence of Ned, who is dead. Let us go south now to the Stormlands, to a castle called Storm's End, a massive round drum of a fortress on a cliff above the sea, old beyond memory, built according to legend by Durin Godscreef, the first king of the Stormlands, who built 6 castles that the sea god destroyed, and then built a 7th that stood. And the 7th is this one, huge and brooding and surrounded by the crash of waves. Here, in a great pavilion erected on the fields before the walls, Renly Baratheon holds his court. Renly is perhaps 21, and he is the most physically magnificent of the Baratheon brothers, tall and dark-haired, with his brother Robert's good looks on a frame that hasn't yet been softened by indulgence, possessed of an easy charm that makes people want to follow him. He has a great army, 100,000 swords, because the lords of the Reach, the fertile, wealthy heart of Westeros, the bread basket of the realm, and the lords of the Stormlands have both flocked to his banner, because Renly has the gifts that make men follow. He is young and charming and feels like a king in a way that his grim, older brother Stannis never has. He has also made a very sensible political marriage to Margaery Tyrell, the daughter of Lord Mace Tyrell of Highgarden, which is how he got the Reach behind him. Margaery is perhaps 16, brown-haired and bright-eyed, and already very good at being publicly gracious, which is a skill not everyone is born with. Catelyn Stark arrives at Renly's camp as an envoy from her son, hoping to secure an alliance, Robb in the north, Renly in the south, a coordinated war against the Lannisters. She finds the camp enormous and festive, more like a tournament than a war, which makes her uneasy. And she finds someone unexpected, her daughter Brienne of Tarth. Except Brienne is not her daughter, though Catelyn will treat her almost as one as their stories braid together. Brienne is perhaps 18, extraordinarily tall as most knights, taller than many, with a broad, plain face and pale eyes that look at the world with a directness that most people find disconcerting. She is not beautiful by any standard the court uses. She is perhaps the finest fighter in Renly's army. She wants nothing but to serve with honor, and she has pledged herself to Renly's Rainbow Guard, his personal guard, and she loves him with a faithfulness that is completely pure and completely hopeless, and completely in character for who she is. Also at Renly's camp, traveling separately, is Stannis Baratheon's envoy, a woman named Melisandre, the Red Woman, a priestess of a god called Arlor, the Lord of Light, who has come from the ancient eastern city of Asshai. She is tall and striking, with deep red hair and red eyes, always dressed in crimson, always burning with some inner certainty that makes ordinary people slightly uncomfortable. She has attached herself to Stannis and convinced him that he is the chosen one of Arlor, Azor Ahai reborn, the hero of ancient prophecy who once saved the world from darkness and is needed again. Stannis is a man who has spent his life doing his duty and receiving no credit for it, and having someone tell him he is cosmically significant has done something to him that duty alone never managed. Stannis himself is at his island castle of Dragonstone, a volcanic fortress on a small island at the mouth of Blackwater Bay, built of dark stone and carved all over with dragon shapes, sinuous, scaled, every wall and doorway framed by stony dragons, because Dragonstone was built by Targaryens and Targaryens had dragons and did not let you forget it. It is a cold, brooding, unhappy place even on warm days, which there are not many of on a windswept volcanic island. Stannis fits it exactly. Stannis Baratheon is perhaps 35, with Robert's dark hair going grey and a jaw so permanently clenched with suppressed irritation that his teeth are reportedly worn down from grinding. He has a soldier's body and an accountant's mind, rigidly precise, utterly fair, completely humorless. The kind of man who cannot let a slight pass unremarked and cannot overlook an injustice, even when overlooking it would be politically convenient. He knows the truth about Joffrey, that Joffrey is Jaime Lannister's son, not Robert's, and therefore has no claim to the throne, because Jon Arryn was investigating this before he died and told Stannis, and Stannis sent ravens telling every lord in the realm, and nobody cared, because Stannis is not the kind of person people want to follow into war even when he is completely right. His claim is the best, and his personality makes it the hardest to support. He has Davos Seaworth, though, and Davos is worth knowing. Davos is a former smuggler who once saved Storm's End during a siege by smuggling onions and salted fish under the Lannister blockade, which kept the garrison alive, which includes Stannis. Stannis rewarded him with a knighthood because it was the right thing to do, and punished him by cutting off the first joint of 4 fingers on his right hand, because smuggling was a crime, and doing the right thing does not undo past crimes, not in Stannis's strict moral universe. Davos wears the knuckle bones in a pouch around his neck, a reminder of who he is and where he came from. He is perhaps 40, weathered from years at sea, steady and plain-spoken, and honestly devoted to Stannis in the way that a man devotes himself to something that demands everything and gives clarity in return. He is deeply uneasy about Melisandre, and he is right to be. Melisandre does a thing at Dragonstone that unsettles everyone, Davos most of all. She takes Stannis to a cave beneath the castle, and there she gives birth, if birth is the right word, to a shadow. A creature made of darkness and purpose, slipping from her as if squeezed from her body, shaped vaguely like a man. A shadow assassin, formed of blood magic and the Lord of Light's fire, carrying Stannis's face in its darkness. Davos is there. He sees it. It goes out into the night. It goes to Storm's End, which Stannis's brother Renly holds against him. On the night the shadow comes to Storm's End, Catelyn is there with Brienne in Renly's tent, negotiating the last details of an alliance that might yet hold the realm from total chaos. And then the candles go out, and the shadow comes through the tent wall like smoke through a keyhole, and it is shaped like Stannis, and it takes Renly by the throat, and Renly is dead before he can make a sound. Just like that. The king who had 100,000 swords and a great laugh and a lovely queen, and everything needed to be loved, gone, in a shadow's moment, in the dark. Brienne, who was the only one with Catelyn, is immediately and obviously the most likely suspect. She was there, she had access, no one saw the shadow. She would be killed for it if she stayed. Catelyn tells her to run. They flee together through the camp in the chaos that follows Renly's death, and Brienne swears herself to Catelyn then and there in the dark, a fierce and simple oath to protect her, because Brienne needs something to be loyal to, and Catelyn needs protection, and these two forms of need fit together neatly. They ride away, and Renly's great army shifts like water. Some of the Stormland lords go to Stannis, because Stannis is the remaining Baratheon, and some go to the Tyrells, because the Tyrells are not going to let their careful positioning go to waste, and Margaery Tyrell will find a new king to marry soon enough. The 100,000 swords scatter and reform in new configurations, like starlings changing direction all at once. In King's Landing, the capital is anxious. Tyrion Lannister has arrived as Hand of the King, sent by his father Tywin to do what Cersei has been failing to do: manage Joffrey, manage the court, manage the war. Tyrion has never been given anything so large to manage. He is finding it suits him. He moves with characteristic energy. He identifies the spies that each member of the small council has planted to report back to them: Pycelle for Cersei, Littlefinger for himself, Varys for Varys, by telling each one a different false secret and watching which secret surfaces where. He removes Jarno's Slynt, the corrupt commander of the City Watch who helped the Lannisters during Ned Stark's arrest, by exiling him to the wall in the night quickly, before anyone can protest. He replaces him with Sir Jacelyn Bywater, a one-handed veteran he trusts marginally more. He has Littlefinger dispatched to the Eyrie to negotiate for Laesar Arryn's support. He navigates Cersei with the wariness of a man handling something that might bite. He also has a secret. He has brought with him, hidden in the city, a woman named She, who is his lover, a young woman of perhaps 18, originally a camp follower, quick-tongued and practical and warm, who has attached herself to Tyrion in a way that is part affection and part professional calculation, and over time becomes something more complicated. Tyrion has been told his entire life that no woman will ever love him for himself, only for what he can give them. He half believes it. He cannot quite stop hoping it is wrong. He installs She as Sansa's handmaiden to keep her close and hidden, which puts her right next to the girl who has become, against everyone's intentions, one of the most carefully managed political prisoners in the capital. Sansa Stark is 12 now, still in King's Landing, still engaged to King Joffrey, still very much a hostage, though everyone is careful not to call it that. She has learned, by raw necessity, to wear a face. To smile, to say the correct things, to perform the contentment of a highborn girl delighted to be betrothed to a king. She flinches inside. Joffrey is not simply unkind in private. He is cruel in public, deliberately, with a specificity that suggests he thinks cruelty is a pleasure rather than a vice. When news comes of Robb's victories in the Riverlands, Joffrey has Sansa brought to the throne room and beaten in front of the court, stripped of her cloak by Sir Meryn Trant, while Joffrey watches with satisfaction. The Hound, Sandor Clegane, Joffrey's sworn shield, gives her his cloak to cover herself with, which is not kindness exactly, but it is the closest thing to it that lives in the Red Cape's throne room. There is also a young man named Dontos Hollard, a drunk and embarrassing knight who Joffrey was about to have drowned in wine barrels on his name day, and whom Sansa cleverly saved by suggesting it was bad luck to kill someone on a king's name day. Dontos becomes, out of gratitude and some remnant of honor from a better version of himself, Sansa's secret ally. He tells her he will help her escape. She is not sure she trusts him, but she has very little else, so she meets him in the Godswood at night, in secret, and waits. Across the narrow sea, Daenerys is walking through a desert. The Red Waste is exactly what it sounds like. A vast, dry, sun-cracked emptiness between the places she has been and the places she needs to reach, red earth and red dust and merciless sun, and she is crossing it with perhaps 100 remaining Dothraki, all that is left of Drogo's Khalasar, the ones who stayed for her, and 3 baby dragons, and almost no food and less water. People and horses die on the crossing. She sends 3 riders in 3 different directions to find civilization and waits, which is one of the harder things a leader can do, waiting when the people around you are suffering. One of her riders returns, the others do not come back, with guides who take her to a city called Qarth. Qarth is one of the greatest cities in the world, and it shows. It sits at the edge of the Red Waste, where the land becomes green again, a walled city of extraordinary architectural extravagance, spires and domes and palaces in every color, wide promenades, a harbor full of ships from every coast of the known world. It is a city of ancient wealth and enormous self-regard, the center of the trading world east of the free cities, and the men who rule it, the 13, the great merchant princes, meet Daenerys at the gate with interest and hauteur in equal measure. She is received into the household of a man named Xaro Exhone Daxos, one of the 13, a merchant of enormous wealth who was born in the Summer Isles and made himself indispensable to Qarthine commerce through sheer determined ambition. He is tall and dark-skinned and elaborately dressed, his robes embroidered with scenes from his own life, his fingers heavy with rings, a man who has built his entire existence as performance and is very good at it. He offers Daenerys wealth. She needs it. She is also attended by a masked woman, Quaithe, from the city of Asshai, a shadowbinder who gives cryptic advice in prophetic riddles and never shows her face, and is either genuinely prophetic or very convincingly evasive, and possibly both. She tells Daenerys that to go forward she must go back, which is the kind of advice that sounds meaningless until suddenly it doesn't. Daenerys visits the House of the Undying, the ancient home of the warlocks of Qarth, the Undying Ones, a conclave of very old sorcerers who have extended their lives by drinking a blue liquid called Shade of the Evening until their lips and mouths are stained blue-black. Their great house is a peculiar architecture of hallways that shouldn't connect the way they do, rooms that shouldn't exist, time that moves strangely. The warlocks invite her because they want her dragons. Magic has been fading from the world for a century and a half, and the dragon's existence is making it stronger again. And the warlocks are growing in power they haven't felt in generations. Inside the House of the Undying, Daenerys walks through visions, her dead brother Rhaegar playing a harp, the Iron Throne in a ruined hall open to the sky and snow falling through the ceiling, a blue-eyed woman and a man she doesn't quite see who might be the beginning of everything that is coming. At the heart of it, the Undying Ones try to keep her, try to feed on her and the dragon's power, and one of the dragons, Drogon, burns them. Daenerys walks out. Arya Stark is on a road north, which is a very different kind of journey than walking through visions. She is 11 years old, and she is pretending to be a boy named Arai, and she is traveling with Yoren's recruits for the Night's Watch, a group of men and boys that includes genuine volunteers and a substantial number of people who chose the wall over execution, which means there are some genuinely dangerous individuals among them. She has Needle hidden. She has a list of names she recites to herself at night like a prayer, a list of people she wants to kill: Cersei, Joffrey, the Hound, Sir Ilan Payne, Sir Meryn Trant, Polliver the Tickler. The list is partly anger management and partly ambition and partly a way of keeping herself tethered to something real when everything around her is frightening and strange. Among the recruits are 3 prisoners in a black cart, men in iron cages, criminals. One of them goes by the name Jaqen H'ghar, which is most likely not his real name. He is a thin, pale-faced man with long hair of 2 colors, red on one side, white on the other, a striking accident of genetics or dye, who speaks in a distinctive third person and has the particular stillness of someone who has completely decided something about the world and is waiting for the world to catch up. He is a faceless man, though Arya doesn't know this yet, an assassin from the city of Bravos trained in the killing arts of the many-faced god. He does not seem like an assassin. He seems like a prisoner in a cart. These are not the same thing. Lannister soldiers attack the column. Yoren is killed. Arya frees the 3 prisoners from their cart before the fire reaches them. The Lannisters burn the cart. She opened the lock because she could not leave them to burn. This small act of mercy will have enormous consequences. The recruits are captured and taken to a place called Harrenhal. Harrenhal is the largest castle ever built in Westeros and also the most ruined, and the ruin is the point. It was built by a king named Harren the Black 300 years ago. Enormous towers, walls so thick armies could camp on the walkways, ambitious beyond any reasonable scale. And on the day it was completed, Aegon the Conqueror arrived with his dragons and simply burned it. Dragons can melt stone. The towers of Harrenhal dripped and fused and warped in the dragon fire, and now they stand in their melted shapes, frozen mid-flow, massive and wrong, inhabited but never repaired because the damage is too immense and too complete. It is an enormous monument to what dragons do to things that thought they were impregnable. It has passed through many hands since and seems to bring bad fortune to everyone who holds it. The small folk say it is cursed. they are not entirely wrong. At Harrenhal, the prisoners are put to work by a brutal man called Sir Amory Lorch, one of the Mountain's men, and then the Mountain himself, Gregor Clegane, the terrifying giant, takes over the castle. The prisoners are tortured every day. A particularly imaginative torturer called the Tickler uses a method involving a bucket and a rat that we do not need to describe in detail, and Arya watches and waits and feeds her list. Jaqen H'ghar comes to her in secret and offers her a gift. He owes her 3 deaths, one for each life she saved from the fire. She names the Tickler. She names Sir Amory Lorch. She considers her list very carefully for the 3rd name and eventually uses it in a way that is strategically brilliant. She names Jaqen himself and threatens to say the name aloud and get him killed unless he helps her free the northern prisoners being held in the dungeons. He helps. A small coup happens inside Harrenhal very quickly, very efficiently, and the Lannister men holding it are dead, and the castle belongs to the northern forces of Roose Bolton, who is Robb Stark's commander in the field, a pale and quiet and extremely dangerous lord of the Dread Fort. Before Jaqen leaves, for he must leave now, having done what he promised, bound for something larger than Harrenhal and something very different from what he appears to be, he offers Arya a final gift. He gives her a coin, iron, a strange coin not of any currency she recognizes. He tells her, if she ever needs him or needs what he represents, she should find a man from Braavos, any man of Braavos, and give him this coin and say the words Valor Morgulis. All men must die. She takes the coin. She does not yet understand what she is holding, but she is the kind of person who will figure it out when the time comes. At Harrenhal, under Roose Bolton's occupation, Arya becomes a cupbearer, and she learns to be invisible the way that useful servants are invisible. And she listens, and she learns more about the war by overhearing conversations at the table of lords than she would have learned in a year of being told things directly. This is one of the more unexpected educations in the book. A child learning strategy by pouring wine and keeping her face still. Roose Bolton himself is a study in understatement, a pale, soft-spoken, almost affectless man who makes every decision with the same quiet precision, who does not raise his voice and does not waste words, and who is followed by rumors that his hobby is flaying people, which is the sigil of his house, the flayed man, and which is not a comforting thing to know about the man holding your castle. Arya keeps her head down and waits for a chance to escape. North of the wall, Jon's ranging has reached a place called the Fist of the First Men, a hill of ancient rocks arranged by long-dead hands, where the Watch makes its camp and sends out patrols. Jon is sent out with a small group led by Qhorin Halfhand, a legendary ranger, half his sword hand lost to a wildling blade, who has survived beyond the wall longer than almost anyone, and who has the complete confidence of a man who has tested himself in hard places and not been found wanting. Qhorin takes Jon to scout the wildling's position, and they capture a wildling scout, a young woman named Ygritte, perhaps 18, with a short, tangled shock of red hair and a quality of absolute directness that is partly her personality and partly what happens when you grow up in a place with no patience for performance. She knows exactly who she is. She is not afraid of anything Jon represents. She tells him that he knows nothing, which is her assessment of him, and also the line she will repeat throughout their long acquaintance, always said with what becomes increasingly like affection. Qhorin tells Jon to kill her. Jon cannot do it. He lets her go or she escapes. The exact mechanics are unclear, and Qhorin is not surprised. They press on and are eventually captured by a large force of wildlings. Qhorin has a plan. He picks a very public fight with Jon, accuses him of cowardice, dishonors him in front of the wildling witnesses, forces a duel, and lets Jon kill him. Dies by Jon's hand deliberately so that Jon can pass as a wildling turncloak, a man who abandoned his vows and joined the enemy, and infiltrate Mance Rayder's army. It is the most severe request an officer has ever made of a subordinate, and Jon understands it fully only as Qhorin is falling. He kills his mentor. He becomes a prisoner. He asks himself whether he has actually turned his cloak or whether he is still loyal, and this question will remain genuinely open for quite some time, including to Jon himself. Back in the South, the war is sharpening. Robb Stark continues to win battles in the Riverlands, which is the great central region of Westeros, a place of rivers and small kingdoms and exhausted smallfolk who have been fighting over by every army that passes. His victories are real. He has captured Jaime Lannister. But winning battles is not winning a war, and the question of what Robb is actually fighting for, independence for the North, revenge for his father, or the Iron Throne itself, remains one that his mother Catelyn worries about, and that his lords debate, and that Robb himself navigates with more political instinct than his age suggests, but less than the situation requires. Catelyn, traveling with Brienne, makes a decision that will define her relationship with Robb for the rest of this book. She releases Jaime Lannister. She sends him south to King's Landing with Brienne as his escort, in exchange for a promise, not guaranteed, not confirmed, just a promise, that Cersei will return Sansa and Arya. Robb is furious when he finds out, because Jaime is the most valuable prisoner in the realm, the hostage that keeps the Lannisters cautious. Catelyn's reasoning is entirely maternal. She wants her daughters back. Her reasoning is also strategically catastrophic. Robb has her confined to quarters, essentially, and the Lords of the North look at her differently after this, and the cracks that were always there in the coalition get wider very slightly, and the very slight cracks are the ones that eventually become chasms. Also, Robb has done something else his mother does not know about yet. He was wounded in battle in the Westerlands, the Lannister heartland, and he was treated and housed by a woman named Jane Westerling, the daughter of a minor lord, a sweet and gentle young woman who nursed him through his fever and his grief over Ned's death. He slept with her, which in this world means he has dishonored her, which means honor demands marriage, which means he has married her in secret, which means he has broken his promise to Walder Frey to marry one of Frey's daughters. The Frey crossing, the bridge his army needs. This marriage is an act of genuine decency. He would not leave Jane dishonored, and it is also a political disaster of the most avoidable kind, and the lords who hear about it know what it will cost, and the Freys will not forget. In King's Landing, the war comes home. Stannis's fleet is approaching the city. He has the great Baratheon strength behind him, storm-hardened sailors and veteran soldiers, and King's Landing is a city of 500,000 people who will burn and loot and riot if the walls are breached. Tyrion has been preparing. He has done something clever and terrible. He has had the great harbour chains stretched across the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, and he has filled the river with ships not full of soldiers, but full of wildfire. Wildfire is the great alchemical secret of the Alchemists' Guild, a substance made by an obsessive process, bright green, volatile beyond any ordinary fire, that sticks to what it burns and cannot be put out with water and burns hot enough to melt stone. It was the Targaryens' weapon before dragons, their substitute for dragon fire, and Tyrion has had the guild produce it in enormous quantities, huge jars of it loaded into ships anchored in the river. When Stannis's fleet is inside the chain and the trap is sprung, when a burning ship is sent in among them, the wildfire ignites in a great green catastrophe. The Blackwater Rush burns, ships explode, men burn on the surface of the water, burning as they try to swim, burning as they try to drown themselves to escape it. It is spectacular and awful in the way of all great military moments. The strategy is brilliant, and the human cost is immense, and both things are true simultaneously. Stannis's fleet burns, but Stannis himself does not stop. He lands soldiers. His men scale the walls, and the battle moves from the water to the mud of the riverbank, and then to the streets of the city. The Lannister forces are almost overwhelmed. Joffrey, on the walls in his shining armor, gets frightened and lets Cersei send him inside, which was perhaps predictable, but which devastates morale at the precise moment when morale is everything. Tyrion leads the sortie himself, rides out through a hidden passage, leads men against Stannis's soldiers, is almost winning, and then is nearly killed when a member of the Kingsguard named Sir Mandon Moore tries to cut his face off. The wound is extreme. His nose is half severed, his face laid open, the scar that will define his appearance for the rest of his life carved in a single treacherous stroke. He is saved by his squire Podrick Payne, a small, quiet, almost comically unremarkable young boy who kills Sir Mandon Moore to save his lord, and says very little about it afterward, because Podrick says very little about anything. The battle is saved not by Tyrion's sortie, but by the arrival of a new force from the south. Lord Tywin Lannister himself, with the full Lannister army riding through the other gate, with the Tyrell forces beside him, because Littlefinger went to the Tyrells as Tyrion instructed and negotiated the alliance, offering Margaery's hand to Joffrey, and Margaery is not attached to any dead kings anymore. Stannis's army breaks and flees. The battle is over. Stannis escapes by ship back to Dragonstone, furious and humiliated. Melisandre was with him, and she watched the wildfire burn from the shore, and she said nothing encouraging. In the north, things go wrong very quietly. Theon Greyjoy goes home. He has been sent by Robb Stark as an envoy to his father. Robb needs ships, needs the Greyjoy fleet to support his war, and Theon is the natural messenger, being Lord Balon Greyjoy's son and the only representative of the family Robb has at hand. This seems sensible. It is not sensible. Theon has been a ward of the Starks since he was 10 years old, hostage for his father's good behavior after the Greyjoy rebellion, and he has spent a decade among people who treated him decently but never let him forget he was hostage and not son. He has spent 10 years being the almost Stark, the nearly brother, the boy who doesn't quite belong. He is going home to prove something, and the problem with proving something is that you need the proof to be dramatic. Pike is the Greyjoy seat, a castle of several towers built on sea stacks, connected by rope bridges over the crashing sea, grey stone above grey water, cold spray, gulls screaming. It is a cold and inhospitable place even to those who love it, and the Ironborn who inhabit it are cold and inhospitable people, proud of their hardness, worshippers of the drowned god who believe that what is dead may never die, and who define themselves by what they take rather than what they make. Lord Balon Greyjoy is Theon's father, gaunt and iron-haired and utterly unsentimental, who looks at his returned son and sees 10 years of soft living in the south and is not impressed. He is already making his own plans. He does not need Robb Stark's alliance. He sees an opportunity. Robb has taken his army south, which means the north is empty, which means the north can be taken. He names his daughter captain of his best forces and dismisses Theon as a message boy. Theon's sister, a Shah Greyjoy, called Yara in the show, but here she is a Shah, is everything Theon is not. She is capable and confident, ironborn to the bone, commanding her own ship and her father's respect in ways Theon never managed. When Theon was taken as a ward, she was left, and she grew up fully her father's daughter, while Theon grew up as something harder to classify. She is not kind to Theon on his return, but she is honest, which in its own way is a form of respect. Theon denied the role he wanted, makes a decision that is simultaneously impulsive and strategically conceived and personally catastrophic. He takes a small force of Ironborn and captures Winterfell. The great castle of House Stark, almost emptied of defenders because Robb took the garrison south, falls to 24 men and a few boats because the defenses were not built for internal assault, and because Theon has the personal knowledge of someone who grew up inside the walls. Maester Luwin is taken prisoner. Sir Roderick Castle and the few remaining fighters are captured. Bran surrenders rather than let the small folk be killed. And then Bran and Rickon escape, with Osha, with the direwolves, with a boy named Hoda carrying Bran on his back, out through secret passages that only the Stark children know, tunnels under the castle that Theon doesn't know exist. They vanish into the night. Theon announces they have been recaptured. He announces they tried to escape again and were caught and executed. He hangs 2 small burned bodies from the walls of Winterfell and lets everyone believe they are the Stark boys. They are not the Stark boys. They are the children of a local miller, killed for this grim purpose, unidentifiable after burning. Theon makes himself a monster for a castle he cannot keep, and somewhere in the tunnel under Winterfell, Bran and Rickon and Osha and Hoda move north in the dark, the wolves padding silently beside them. Winterfell does not hold. The northern lords, furious at the desecration of their sacred seat, send forces. A Bolton army arrives, the forces of Roose Bolton's bastard son, Ramsay Snow, though what Ramsay is and what he does is a horror that this book only hints at. The Ironborn cannot withstand a siege. Theon's men knock him unconscious, promising to bring him home to ransom, and the Bolton forces enter Winterfell and burn it, and Winterfell burns. The great grey castle that has stood for 8,000 years, the heart tree in the godswood weeping red sap, the towers Bran used to climb, the hot springs that kept the stone halls warm, burning, burning, everything burning. By the time Maester Luwin crawls to the godswood to die by his own hand rather than a Bolton soldier's, the smoke is visible for miles. Sir Roderick Castle is dead. Winterfell is rubble. Bran, somewhere in the north, feels it, or Summer does. The wolf feels the burning of the home they love and dreams of smoke and dying stone, and Bran wakes in the dark with tears on his face and nowhere to go but forward, which is what he does. He is going north toward the wall. Osha knows the way, roughly. There is a person Bran has seen in dreams, a boy, a strange pale boy beyond the wall, and the dreams say this boy can help him understand what he is, what the wolf dreams mean, what the three-eyed raven is that keeps appearing in his sleep, perched in the heart tree, watching him with an eye that knows everything. He is going to find answers. He has no idea how far the answers are or how cold the road is, but he goes. By the end of the book, Tyrion wakes up from his near-fatal wounding to find the world rearranged around his absence. His father Tywin has ridden in as the savior of King's Landing and been named Hand of the King. The job Tyrion was doing brilliantly, the job that suited him better than anything he has ever been asked to do. He is thanked with a smaller set of rooms. Joffrey has rewarded the Tyrells with a feast and a betrothal. Cersei still hates him. She is still there, still his, and he is still not sure what she is. He has a scar across his face and very little credit for the battle he effectively won. This is where Tyrion always lives, doing the necessary thing, getting no acknowledgement, surviving. Sansa learns, the morning after the battle, that Joffrey intends to set her aside in favor of Margaery Tyrell. This should be relief. It is relief. But it is not freedom. She is still in King's Landing, still a prisoner, still a Stark in Lannister captivity, and Joffrey being cruel to someone else does not make her safe. Dontos Hollard still whispers to her in the godswood. Littlefinger watches her from across rooms with a patience that is only slightly more comforting than a threat. She is not free. She is just facing a different cage. And at the wall, past the wall, beyond the fist of the first men, the ranging has heard its own destruction. The men left at the fist of the first men, the main body of the watch, the 300, are attacked in the night, between one chapter and the next, by the army of the dead. White walkers and the whites they raise and command, the dead men walking with their cold blue eyes, swarm the camp in darkness, and the survivors run south, screaming for the wall. Hundreds die, dozens make it. They run south, and the wall is so far, and the dead are behind them, and the horn sounds. 1 blast for rangers returning, 2 for wildlings, 3 for the others, and 3 blasts would mean the others are here, actually here, close enough to matter, and the surviving brothers run and run through the dark in the cold. The book ends there, essentially, in running. Everyone is running toward something or away from something or both. Arya has escaped Harrenhal and is running north, 3 companions from the Watch heading home. Jon is going north with the wildlings, wearing a dead man's cloak of deceit. Bran is going north on Hoda's back in the dark. The Watch survivors are running south. Daenerys is leaving Karth by ship with her 3 young dragons, heading west now toward Westeros, though it is still very far away. Robb is in the field, still fighting, and his marriage is a secret that will detonate eventually. Stannis is at Dragonstone, still angry, with Melisandre burning her fires and reading her futures in the flames. And up above all of it, the red comet has been and gone. It crossed the sky and everyone read it differently, and maybe they were all right and maybe they were all wrong, and the comet did not belong to any of them. The sky above Westeros is dark now, clear and cold, and the stars are just stars, and winter is coming, it is always coming, and somewhere north of the wall the dead are waiting with endless patience for the cold to do its work. Sleep now. The running will continue in the morning. Let it rest for now. The cold will wait. The dead always wait. Close your eyes and let the long story breathe around you. All those kings and none of them quite right for the throne. All those wars and none of them quite solving the actual problem. All that fire and ice and politics and grief. The dragons are growing somewhere over the narrow sea. The winter is coming. In the end. This sleepy summary, with its relaxing tone and warm glow, is not meant to replace something. It is meant to honor and point toward a much larger light. It is offered with care, and with the genuine hope that something in tonight's listening finds its way into you as an invitation. The whole book is waiting. The real depth lives there, in every word they chose, and every story they told, and every quiet idea they let breathe across a full page. Let this be the beginning of something you carry forward in the light of an ordinary tomorrow, and if this lamp has helped you in some way, a light keeps it burning for someone else who might need it too.